Hello, podcast friends, and welcome to the Prime Knowledge Podcast. All details about today's episode can be found in the show notes below.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
It's all right. Let's get on with it. Let's get stuck in.
Yeah. A couple of little issues as we got started, but we're here. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in business?
Yeah, cool. So I started in business. So I was in my first foundation at 5 years old with my old man, who's a quantity surveyor, so a QS, on an extension, like a wraparound extension. And I just fell in love with it. Taking all them like different materials, combining it all together and creating something that was valuable was like, this is cool shit. I like this. This is what I want to do. So I sort of got the bug for construction from them, really. We moved when I was 8. We moved from Birmingham, where I was born, to Bristol. And I got really badly bullied. I fucking hated it because I spoke like a Brummie. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. And I was in the middle of like a little village just north of a place called Thornbury, just outside Bristol, where everyone took like carrot cruncher. So I just didn't fit in. I got bullied, didn't like it. At 11, I got a job in a pub, washing pots, which I loved because I was working with adults. And I just said to my mum and dad, like, what? Like, I've never had a job. What can you recommend? They went, look, just be early and just work hard. And if you finish whatever they've like told you to do, tell them you've done that and say, what can I do next? And that was it. Then just 3 simple rules. That was it. And that's what I did. But what I didn't realise, the person that I replaced was like a lot older than me and just like shit and lazy. So the fact that I was like trying to get through work and then going, okay, what can I do now? They were like, this is like a breath of fresh air. So pretty quickly I went from doing like a Saturday night to doing Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday lunch, sometimes Sunday evening, but not always, depended whether like in the summer always. And then the guy that used to do like all the bottling up in the fridges and the bars and the shelves behind the bar, he just didn't show up one day. So they were like, do you want to come and knock to my door? And was like, do you want to come and do the bottling up? We'll pay you. So I was like, yeah, all right. So I didn't even know what it was. Didn't even know what it meant, really. It's like, oh, I'll figure it out. They must think I can do it, so I must be able to do it, right? So I'd done it, did it wrong, put all new bottles in the front, so all the old shit was at the back, got a bollocking, and it was like, and then I was told how to do it properly. So then every day before school, I used to like pull my trackies on, go and do the bottling up, and then get changed into my uniform and go to school. But I was earning about like 80, 100 quid a week. It was fucking weird. I loved it. It was wicked. But because I was there quite a lot, I got to know the landlord and landlady's son, who was a landscaper, and daughter, who was like in her she was a weapon actually, to be fair, in her like late 20s, and her daughter's boyfriend, who was a scaffolder. And one Saturday, like they were like, "Oh, we've got this like big, massive like Arctic load of turf coming. Do you want to come and give us a hand? You're like quite a grafter." So I went and done that and got paid. Can't remember. I think it was like 50 or 60 quid. And I was like, this is a touch. Like, I was well chuffed. That was like half a week's wages. We was back in the pub by 2 o'clock. So I was well chuffed. And then a few weeks later, the son-in-law was knocking down a big scaffold in Bristol Town Centre. And he was like, oh, do you want to come and labour for us just collecting fittings? And I outworked the labourer that was meant to be the scaffolder's labourer, like taking gear off of the rope and stuff. So like, do you want to just come and do the odd day? So that sort of got a bit like nutty and ended up like bunking off school to go and work. And I just sort of got into it from there. But I loved making money. I loved working hard to make money. And the harder I worked, the more money I made. And then I was in the van one day and there was an issue with how much money they'd made on a job. And the maths was wrong and how they'd calculated it. And I could see what was wrong with it. So I just fixed it. I mean, that's the problem. You haven't charged for like this, and this. And they were like, you fucking what? You cheeky little fucker. How'd you know that? Well, because like we nearly crashed because the geezer driving was like, what? He was like proper like aggy about it. I was like, well, they started saying, you're just a cheeky little fucker. How do you know that? And then I started like helping them with their quoting and that sort of stuff. And it just sort of went from there, really. And then when I was 13, we moved from Bristol because my dad got promoted. So we moved from there to Buckinghamshire, so like proper like across country. I didn't want to go. I refused to go. Like at weekends, I mean, this is before Rightmove. Like the internet weren't a thing. Email didn't even exist. Computers didn't. I don't know if computers even really existed. So I refused to go. So at the weekends, my mum and dad would go off house hunting. I'd stay in the pub and work. Because I was like, I'm not giving up my job. Like, that's what I love. Because part of with my wages, part of it, I used to just give the bullies like a fiver or like a couple of quid to just like jog on and leave me alone, sort of thing. So I didn't want like any of that to end, because I'd kind of like, through working hard, I'd kind of like sussed out like a little system for how to kind of like operate my life based on like wanting, like just not wanting any ag, because I'm not a fighter. I mean, I've had some pretty horrible fights in my time, but I'm not proud of it. But I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I don't want to be like going toe to toe with people. I'm not afraid to if I have to, but it's not my first kind of thing I want to do. So I just kind of got life a bit sussed, really. And then we moved house, and it was like, and then that whole thing changed, and it was like all the bullying started again, because I was again like the new kid in a new town kind of thing. So yeah, that's when I sort of started in construction, really, and yeah, loved it. It was really good to me. I earned good money out of doing it, and still do to this day. So yeah, it's been alright. It's been proper ups and downs. I've come close to suicide twice, for different reasons. There's been some like proper highs, but there's also been some pretty dark times as well. So
Yeah, sounds like a kind of crazy story. And I can relate to quite a lot of that as well, because my parents were very much like, as soon as you're of age, you work. And I went down the same sort of path as you did, with, working in pubs and working as labourers. And we talked before the podcast about potentially sort of getting back into having a building style company that I'm looking at doing at the moment. So yeah, I've been down that path, minus the traveling around, moving around the country. I'd literally lived in the same house from 4 till I was 16, and then flew the nest. So yeah, it's cool. So you said a little bit in there about obviously big highs and big lows within your life. Is there a pivotal moment within your career that has shaped you and your business going forward?
yeah, I think there's a few. There's a few sort of almost like sort of pivotal or seminal moments. I think one was the realization that actually I can earn more with that than I can with them. Because it doesn't matter how many hours in a day you earn, you are limited. There's a ceiling on how much you can earn on it with your hands, unless you sort of start getting into employing blokes. And I sort of went down that road, and I made some good money out of it and got burnt a few times. And then my first ever kind of mentor, it wasn't like a mentoring agreement. It wasn't like a mentoring contract or anything. It was just a conversation about like where I was at with my life and what I was doing. And he already worked in construction. He was a QS for a house builder, and he was like, "Look, you got a proper brain on your head, boy. Like, what are you doing? Like, your knees are going to be fucked, your back's going to be ruined. Like, mate, you're not even going to make 30. You're doing," because we were doing 2 shifts a day. We were working during the day, and then we were working on, like, in London at night, doing work in like Canary Wharf and different places like that. So and it's quite ironic, because actually I'm just turned 47, and I've got a call at 3 o'clock today to sort out booking in for a double hip replacement. So he was right, But what he was sort of saying was, look, you could sort of you could train yourself, get into project management, get into that, like the management of construction, where you're not reliant on your body. He said, and with your determination and drive, mate, you could just go straight to, like, not straight to the boardroom, but you could work your way through the corporate ladder. So I think that was definitely a seminal moment. I think another pivotal moment was I did a keynote at the NEC telling the social housing industry that the procurement model was broken, to an audience which was meant to be 50 people and ended up being in hundreds, and then losing my job a couple of weeks later. Despite getting really, really good feedback, the people in the room were amazing. We won work out of it. I left by mutual agreement is probably the best way to describe it. That was definitely a bit of a pivotal moment, I think. So in order to do that, because my biggest fear was public speaking, I was petrified. And ironically, 6 months before that, I'd had an appraisal with my boss, who said, like, gone through like all the normal stuff you go through in an appraisal. And he was like, "Yeah, this is gravy. You're smashing it. Like, everything's sweet." And I'm like, well happy with everything. What do you want to work on? And I said to him, I want to work on my public speaking. That's the one thing that's like my Achilles heel. I can't do it. So it was like, okay, well, like how it going in, like sort of investigate it. Whatever you want to do, we'll back you to do. He said, but if you want to go and like join a book club and like whatever you want to do, do it. So I was part of a thing called the National Housing Maintenance Forum. So I was on the contractor forum for that. And at the next meeting, a couple of weeks later, they said, "Look, we've got to do a presentation at the NEC in Birmingham about like social housing procurement. We need to put together a panel. Like, who's interested in doing it?" And I just went like that. Me, I'll be there. So it was an absolute nightmare. We ended up being 5 of us. Took 6 months to write all of the keynote and all the stuff. And on the night before, one of the other people pulled out. So all the rehearsals, all the work that we'd done, we had to basically take all the slides, reconfigure who was going to do what, and then deliver it. So it was a massive piece of work. I worked with the first ever coach that I had, first ever business coach that I had. On my mindset, did loads of work on my mindset and put loads of stuff in place to help me do that. That was definitely a pivotal moment. I think what I would say is probably the biggest pivotal moment was exiting that paid job and going into self-employment. And then the most recent one was working with my speaker parents, Toni and Robert, undoubtedly. So I think the key seminal moment for me, realistically, probably was going into project management, understanding the value of working with coaches, and understanding and working out what my purpose is. For me, that was massive. Actually doing that work and working out what is my why, and then learning how to then actually work out what my value proposition is back to the world. And, I've got no one to thank for that but Tony Gargan and Robert Upright.
So that was probably, not sure when you did speaker training compared to me, but that's obviously where we got to know each other, was through the progressive speaker training. And it's a little bit the same for me, actually, because I went to do the training with no intention of being a speaker, which for a lot of people seems a bit mental. Like, it just wasn't something that was ever on the cards for me. I just wanted to go there to get more confident to deal with kind of all situations where I need to be around people and talk to people, which had always been difficult for me.
Yeah.
And suddenly came up realizing that I had a story and that I could help people. And that's kind of drove me to kind of the businesses that I'm running now.
I remember some of those conversations.
Yeah. And it's been, like a year. When did I leave ESA? That would have been latter part of last year, and you'd already left by then. So yeah, it's been a crazy couple of years. So it'd be a good time to talk about. So we did the speaker training together a couple of years ago. Went through a mastermind, which
we
was
did.
amazing. And then that's led into you building a training business.
Yep.
So let's talk about that and kind of what you're doing and how you're helping people. And
cool. So I originally started looking at the speaker stuff on the 19th of July. That was when I first had a conversation with Tony about it, and I was like, I want to do what you're doing. I just totally get it. But I don't know what I talk about, because nobody wants to, like, what am I going to talk about? And she was like, you need to share the knowledge you've got on like property and delivering like big projects. So obviously working with her, obviously met you on the course and on the academy, and doing that work and actually working out what I wanted to do, which was actually to be able to help people that are either fellow tradespeople or people that want to get into property for wealth, to actually set those projects up properly and actually do it safely, do it compliantly, but do it so that using proper systems, so that you actually make even more money than you would by trying to wing it in the first place. So I never even thought that there was a market for that. I was like, why? Who's going to want to listen to me? And, don't get me wrong, yes, Tony and Robert, but also all of the other people that I'm like fortunate enough to have met on that journey. It's such a really, really cool community. It's one of the WhatsApp groups I check every single day without fail. to see what people are up to and to support. And I actually saw Robert yesterday, and he said to me, "Look, why don't you come back for a couple of sessions at ESA, because we loved having you in the room, because as much as you were there to learn, you were always a big supporter of other people." And for me, that's what it was about. It was about, yeah, I was there to learn, but actually, if I could see what someone else was doing and offer some advice and share some experience, because I'm one of them people that if I want to do something, I'm all in. And I've done well over 500 speaking gigs in 3 years. I've almost lost my voice. My vocal cords are stretched. I'm waiting for 2 new hips because I did so many miles in speaking and traveling. But I love it. Sharing knowledge and helping people to take those knowledge nuggets and then go and achieve what they want to do, make more money, do it safely, do it compliantly. Is I such a buzz out of doing that. It's just unbelievable. It properly fills my soul cup.
You still doing that many speaking gigs now? I obviously know, like last year, you were doing crazy numbers. You sort of
I got to Christmas last year and the pain in my hips was so bad. I was smashing so many pills. I was rattling. I'd had all sorts of scans and tests, and because originally, it's been going on for over 2 years. They thought originally I'd trapped my femoral nerve. I've done osteopath, chiropractor, acupuncturist. I've had so many scans and all sorts of different stuff to try and work out what it is. But it's actually arthritis. But it's been accelerated and exacerbated by the amount of miles I've done, sitting, driving, the amount of time I've spent on my feet on stage. And then my weight doesn't help either, because I'm over 18 stone. I'm quite a big bloke, so yeah, that doesn't help, putting all that weight through your hips as well. So I've kind of reined it in. I've reined it in massively. I do more stuff online now. I'm much more intentional. When I first started speaking, I'd go and speak at the opening of a bag of crisps. Do you know what I mean? It was I'd go and speak anywhere. So it was kind of, I'm much more intentional now. I'll speak at bigger events. Obviously, I speak at Progressive 2 or 3 times a month. Obviously, I'm now also lead trainer on the commercial property course for Progressive as well. So that takes up a reasonable amount of my time as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
and hopefully it'll.
Yeah, fine. So I'm now joint lead trainer on the commercial property course with Progressive, with the amazing Wendy Bromwell.
Yeah, I know Wendy really well. She's incredible.
Do you know what? I do consider myself really privileged to be her wingman and to deliver that course together. So we were together yesterday. Like everybody says, you just seem to know where each other are at, either whether it's in the room, whether it's in your content, or whatever you're doing. You just seem to know where each other are at. It's just instinctively, and we do. It's we just work well together.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's the key. If you're working on stage with somebody, it's like the dynamic of Toni and Robert that we've seen time and time again. They've worked together. They're such good speakers, and they've also worked together so much they really know and understand each other and how the dynamic works. I think the more you work with somebody, the more that kind of dynamic works over time. So obviously, the traveling around the country, you were doing a lot of speaking. That was to do with the training business. Is that kind of the way you grew your training business, was just getting out there and
absolutely. Yeah. It was totally and completely bootstrapped. We didn't have $5,000 to spend on marketing, or because I took a year off to write it. Literally in a year, I did 4 bits of consultancy work. Our earnings dropped by about 80%. Because I took 11 months to write the course from scratch, and then another month to go through 3 rounds of due diligence with big industry peers. Because I'm not a teacher, I don't pretend to be a teacher. I've got no desire to go and get a teaching qualification. I teach something I know about using a system that I've created that I've then had validated by external peers. I'm not a teacher. I don't pretend I am. So it was tough, and we didn't have loads of money to spend on marketing, so it was very much a case of organic marketing through speaking at events.
And now that you're not doing as many speaking gigs, how are you now bringing people into your course now? What's your
So So we've got amazing Trustpilot feedback. You know, everyone's 5 stars. I think we're rated at 4.8 because one guy didn't get some templates for a couple of weeks, which is one of them things, but it's life, you know. And I've left it on there because I'd rather just be honest about it. So right now, so we have lots of people actually that have done the course and actually just like want to recommend it to other people and they don't. It's not like they don't get any money for it. It's not like a referral commission or anything. They just see they've got so much value out of it. They want other people to come and do it. So we've got quite a few people out there that are just telling people about it. I've done 2 or 3 bits of speaking this year. I'm quite renowned for project management within the property space now. So lots of people, when I regularly am at events and people come up to me and they go, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Like some guy came up to me the other day. I was at my daughter's swimming competition. I was no idea who this guy was. He was like, "Hi, Mr. Stone, how are you?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm okay, thanks." And he was like, "How are the hips?" I'm like, "Well, okay." And then the conversation moved on, and then about 2 minutes later, he said he referred to me as Richard. And when that first happened, it properly spun me out. I was like, "This, I don't." And I had a conversation with Toni about it. And she was like, "Listen, you're destined for big things. You've got to get used to that because people are going to know you. The more stuff you do online, the more content you put out there, people are going to know you. You can't know everyone." And now it happens all the time. So it's just like, "Hi, how are you?" It did happen to me. We got nominated for a property award last year. I went to the event ceremony at the Ministry of Sound in London, which was quite cool. And a lady come up to me and she was like, "Hi, how are you?" She was absolutely like Jan Lehman. She must have had I don't know how much alcohol she had, but she was smashed. And I didn't know who she was. But she wouldn't tell me. And I've got like 8 or 10 questions that I ask someone to try and understand what their name is. And if they're with someone, I've got questions I can ask them to try and find out what their name is. But she knew what I was doing. She would not play the game. And in the end, she said to me, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, no, I don't. I've got no idea." And she said, "Look," and she went onto LinkedIn, and we were connected on LinkedIn. We'd had this like massive exchange about a problem she'd had on a property project, and I'd given her loads of advice. She went, "Look, I'm really offended that you don't know who I am." She said, "But I can't be too offended because you just saved me over 100 grand." So I thought, "Do you know what? You be as offended as you want. If I just saved you 100 grand, that's my work
Yeah.
here's done," kind of thing. So
Yes, there's only so many people you can remember,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, there's ways of remembering people's names and there's lots of stuff like that, but ultimately, eventually, you meet so many people. Yeah, I get it. I've not spoken at anywhere near as many events as you have, but I get the same thing where I've met people before and someone will connect and send me a message and then be like, "Where did I meet you? Where's the connection? I definitely recognize you, but can't put if I can put people in the right kind of
Yeah.
area, I can usually figure out like who they are. But if I can't like put their face to somewhere and kind of to put it like create the circle of where I met them from, it's so hard to remember all those people. Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting how you've gone about it because we're building a training business now, me and my business partners, which is why we've launched a podcast. And I think it's really interesting to see how other people have built a business, and we're trying to do the same as trying to do it with like little to no money, so that we can develop something through the same way that you're doing it, really. So trying to help people, like we've got a course that can really help people, and we did the same. We spent a really long time putting the course together and then going, "Oh, now we need to get it to market." And that's the bit that we're now starting to work on, is going, "Cool, well, how do we get people in the room so that they can see the benefit of what we're doing?" And I think, yeah, getting out there more, building the socials, building the YouTube and the podcast and stuff is kind of what we're doing at the moment. So it takes a lot of work, doesn't it? I
Massive,
think.
takes a massive amount of work, and
Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, I think there are very few people that go into it who actually realise just how much work it takes to actually get to the point where you've actually got a room of people that are on a course that's self-liquidating and actually making money. You know, that whole top
Yeah.
of the funnel thing takes a serious amount of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just building your brand and building the knowledge in there and building a community of people that are interested and want your services.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you need to flow them down the funnel into an in-person course. And the in-person course is is a way of really helping those people, but also being able to make money so that it makes all of the work worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of
Um,
it's got to tick all of those boxes, and I mean that
yeah,
there's I did a podcast interview a few years ago with a lady in London, and it was really funny because we were sitting being interviewed, and she said something about like why do you do what you do, and I said, well, it's the perfect balance of it. It's something that the world needs. It's something that I'm good at. It's something that I enjoy doing. And it's something I can make money out of. And she went, that's called Ikigai. I went, I know, because I've read the book. And she went, what, this one? And she'd got the same book. It's like, that's it. It is that perfect balance of actually all of those things. And it's, that's when you've hit the sweet spot, when it is the balance of all of those things. It doesn't make it any easier. But when times are really hard and the training industry, I love it to bits, but it is hard. It's hard work. And there are times you sit back and think, you know what, should I really carry on doing this? Do I need to just get a job? And
yeah,
it's not easy to do. It takes a lot of hard work. But ultimately, if you believe in it and it's what your why is, then you need to stick at it. But everything's got to align. I mean, we've just literally rebranded my podcast that I created during lockdown, because it was just like a lockdown project and it was called On the Block. And we've just renamed it and rebranded it and relaunching it. And it's now called No Stone Unturned. But it's very much around property and project management. And I'll still do all of the other stuff, that like the episodes about the menopause and mental health and drugs and all of that sort of stuff, and the stuff that doesn't get enough airtime, because I do believe that having a voice and having a position where you are speaking comes a responsibility to talk about that sort of stuff. If you're if you're qualified to talk about it. And I've had some absolutely amazing interview guests. I've been really fortunate. I mean, we're recording this on Zoom. We had a conversation before we hit record about actually it's great to record in person as well. And I couldn't agree more. I'm a very much a people person, but I would never have got to interview some of the people I have if it wasn't for Zoom, because they're all over the country.
yeah, definitely. Like business is a people person, irrelevant of what the business is, and I think that was something that property taught me. Is we met at a property training company doing speaking stuff, but I think might have even met doing some SA stuff
Yeah, we
previous
did.
to
Yeah.
that. And I think that was probably for me was a big turning point to go, actually, I've been focused on all of these other things within business, whereas actually it's all about the people that you're surrounded by, the people that you work with, the people that maybe work for you or you work for. And every customer and client is a person. Within the SA business, we've got guests and contractors and all the rest of it. And I think you just sort of think, well, business is business, but it isn't. It's all about the
It's
people
all
in it.
about people.
Yeah, and I think getting out of my own way and putting more time into the people that I work with and I work for, and I've got a lot more of a care, I think, for the people that I've employed before and that kind of stuff. And it was it's cool. I think I just find it really like fascinating how you've built 500 speaking gigs over a couple of year period is insane. I don't think I've done even 20% of that over a longer period of time. So
I was just absolutely like relentless. It was like mental, like absolutely crazy, and it was tiring. But just to come back to your point, I can tell you where we first met. We met in SA, and I can even tell you where you were sitting. You were sitting next to Greg Ball, and me and him had a conversation about some stuff, and he didn't really like what I had to say. And you were sitting next to him, and you were like, "You need to listen to this guy." And he didn't like what I had to say. And we now speak quite regularly, and we get on really well, because he's like, "I get it. I understand now what you're talking about."
yeah, I haven't spoken to Greg for ages. Actually, that's so funny. It's like such a small world of people, isn't it? I think
It is, yeah.
there's so many. I've got like through the training that I've done with Progressive is just this now of just so many interlinked people, and there's all these people that I've probably met more people in the last kind of 2 and a bit years since I got into property than I met maybe for like 10 years before
Yeah,
that.
quite probably, yeah.
I was very sheltered in my opinion that all businesses were against each other and we're all opposition, and whereas now it's more like, well, actually, there's so much more collaboration. There's plenty of work for everyone. There's plenty of opportunities for everyone. You just
Of
need to
course there
find
is.
out where you fit together and how that works. And it's I think so it's so funny. Like, that would have been sort of 3 years ago now, wouldn't it? I would have thought 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was July. It was July. I did my speaker training. I did started the speaker journey in July 21.
Yeah,
It's
I think you
almost
joined us.
it's almost 3 years ago to the day.
Yeah. So I think, I'm trying to think when we started. Yeah, somewhere around then as well. I can't remember. It's just been a crazy few years. So
It has definitely.
selling my business and moving on to new things and all that kind of stuff. It's been a crazy 3 years. So, we talked about obviously how busy you've been. How do you find balancing work and kind of family stroke personal life? Is that something you're very good at, or because from what I'm hearing so far, I'd imagine you're pretty full on into stuff.
Yeah, I am. It's something that I try and work on. I'm not very good at it. I mean, I haven't got it on today, but I've normally got my Apple Watch has got like 3 or 4 images on it. One is the wheel of life, so all of the different segments of life, the 8 segments of life. And then the others are different things. So one is my blueprint system, and one is the speaker system, and then another one is the pentagon. And that's how I learn. I'm a very visual learner. So that's how I was able to get proficient at speaking, because it was there. So every time I got a notification on my phone, or my phone rang, or I looked at the time, the transparent image in the background was that system. So it was going into my subconscious constantly. I need to have the wheel of life on there, because I'm also very much a 1,000 miles an hour. I had a conversation with Gemma actually earlier in the week, because I was working at home for the day. I was sitting on my desk, and she said, I'd sent you a text message. I was knee deep in a spreadsheet looking at a deal. I didn't look at my phone. I focus on one thing. Like, loads of people talk about multitasking. For me, I think it's a load of shit. You need to focus on one thing and get one thing done. If you've got notifications going off, or different things pulling you in different directions, it doesn't work. I had this conversation yesterday with somebody, and they'd literally just learnt about the Pomodoro effect, where you literally block out 25-minute chunks and you solely focus on one key thing. That's me. That's what I've got to do. But I'm also one of them people that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm 100% into it. And when I started writing that blueprint, I was like, right, like, the people that have told me I need to do this have put massive faith in the fact that I can deliver it. So I can't let them down. So I'm like, and that's what happened in my career when I went from being on the tools to being site manager. I got offered a job as an assistant site manager, and I felt like that company took such a massive gamble on taking someone that was on the tools before that. When I'd built a house and I'd done a few refurbs, but I wasn't qualified at that point. And I felt they'd put such a massive investment into me and took a big gamble that I was like, right, I need to work my bollocks off to prove and to repay that kind of, like, that leap of faith they put in me. And, I mean, that was why my career, I went from assistant site manager to being in the boardroom in 9.5 years. It cost me my first marriage, but I did it because I was absolutely fucking relentless. I was up at 4 every day. I was driving down the motorway to London. I was running 3 or 4 projects at a time. I'd get home. I'd do the surveying at night, because literally, like, old-fashioned, like, computers had just come out, so I had a computer at home. So I'd have to do all the numbers on the computer at night when I got in. I wouldn't get to bed till like midnight, 1 o'clock. Then I'd be up like 2-3 hours sleep. I was like smashing through like fucking best part of 100 cans of Red Bull a week. But if I do something, I'm literally all in with it.
Yeah, it's I think the balance thing is so difficult.
It's really hard.
I've got 2 young kids, so I know that time with them is kind of precious.
So important.
Right words. And but at the same time, we had a conversation literally last night, me and my wife. So me and Rachel run the business together. So and is going, well, cool, look, there's ways we can still work really hard by balancing childcare between us. And we've got through, like, I've had the last couple of years where I've probably worked a little bit less than I've worked for a long time, still trying to do what I'm doing, but trying to still be around. because I'm really aware that, especially when the kids are younger, that's when we can build a bond that will
Yeah,
last.
absolutely. It'll last a
That kind of
lifetime.
stuff. But at the same time, I get the guilt either way, and they quite often call it like the mum guilt, but like dads get it as well. Like,
Yeah, it works both ways.
if I'm working, I feel like I should be at home, and if I'm at home, I feel like I should be doing something. And we had a good conversation actually, and it kind of led by Rach. Just go, look, why don't we, if we want to build more, and we want to build this business that we've got, and let's not sacrifice time with the kids, but what we can do is maybe a couple of days a week, one of us can go off and work, and one of us can watch kids, and then at night, a couple of nights a week, we can just do a couple hours worth of work when they've gone to bed, and we can still get the time with the kids, and we can get the time to do those bits in the business. And I think that's going to be really good for us going forward, because just a few hours here and a few hours there, suddenly we can get a lot of work.
You can be a lot more intentional. If you've got a couple of hours and you've got to get something done, you'll get it done. Whereas, is it I think it's Parkinson's law, isn't it, where the task will expand to the length of the period of time you've got to actually.
Yeah, that's Alex Hormozzi's big thing, isn't it? Is he's like, if you really focus on the one thing and you set yourself a really, really difficult target, chances are you'll get it. Whereas if you just go, I've got to get this done by the end of the week, then you just won't.
Yeah, so, exactly.
But I'm still playing around with this idea of balance and how it works, but just trying to be as present as possible.
I think it's more. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the work-life balance kind of like whole mantra. I think for me, it's more about a blend, because, I mean, we've just literally had a conversation about the weekend, and we were chatting this morning, and we're like, well, okay, Gemma was like, well, like, what are you doing at the weekend? Like, what plans? And I was like, well, let's look at the family diary, and there was like nothing in there. She's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't mind, as long as we, like, as a family, we all do some of the stuff we want to do. And she wanted to do something with Ruby tomorrow, and I was like, okay, cool, fine, that's absolutely fine. She was like, well, like, you're not going to want to do that because you're like on crutches waiting for surgery. I was like, that's fine. You two go and do that. We'll do something in the evening. But if you're going to do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time in the studio. I'm going to spend 6 hours in the studio. I'm going to get loads of stuff recorded. I'm quite happy doing that, and I'm comfortable to do that because I know everybody else is doing what they want. So it's the right blend of people spending time what they do, and I absolutely fucking love what I do. I don't have a job. I love what I do. So for me to get to do that, it's like, yeah, brilliant, absolute win.
Yeah, I like that word actually. I've not heard that before. They're like kind of, I'm the same. I don't really like the work-life balance. But I find it difficult. It's a question I like to ask, because I think when you are somebody that's driven and you have businesses, trying to balance, although it's not quite the right word, is the easiest way to kind of talk about it. But I actually quite like the way of the blend of it. And I think that one of the things that I think is really important, that obviously that my kids know and understands, that they can kind of do anything with their life, and if they want to run their own businesses, then that's great. I'm to that point now, I'm totally unemployable, and I think that's great. And I'm driven by solving problems by some kind of business or growing the business I've got, rather than going, well, I could go and get a job tomorrow if I wanted to earn more money, or could I create a business or grow the business I've got? Kind of works much better for my psyche, because I can do that early in the morning or late at night, or I can spend time during the day, and I can split my time however I need to do that. Whereas the idea of working for somebody else on somebody else's thing just doesn't sit with me anymore.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've still got all my tools in the garage from when I was on the tools as a labour-only fencer, and they're kind of almost like my insurance policy.
Yeah.
And it's now kind of it is an insurance policy. I mean, to be fair, I think I'd be fucked. I'd still cover my money on price work because I was an animal. And I now look at it and go, they've got all these power tools that we never had back in the day. So you know what, it'd be a lot fucking easier. But they are an insurance policy. But I know I can earn more with that than I can ever with anything else. So it's almost like, you know.
And I think also it's that thing, isn't it? If you can do that, earning more money doing the thing that you love, the speaking thing. And that's the thing for me. That's the thing that I'm developing now. Like the podcast, like I said right at the beginning, the podcast it's been a dream for me for a long time. I've wanted to do one, and I appreciate that it's going to take some time and some effort now to grow it and develop it. But over time, hopefully, we can generate some revenue here, and we can be bigger people, and we can start to build following and that kind of stuff, and it just takes time.
Yeah.
I think I know for a fact you talk to people in business, they want the quick fix. They want the business to be 7 figures in the first year, and they want the big returns, and they want the money for themselves. And I think sometimes you've got to go, okay, what's the balance here? Well, I can go and do X today that's going to bring in some money for us as a family, and then I can also work on this passion project that I know is going to bring in some money for us and to help us as a family later. But at the moment, I'm just going to put the time in and do the work now, because that's what I want to do, and that's going to work towards something.
And the thing with podcasts, which is one of the reasons I love them, is they're evergreen. Like literally, I had 2 people book my where are we now, July, book my March course off of the back of a podcast I recorded 2 years ago.
Wow.
And in that podcast, I was just talking about the fact that I was writing a course.
Yeah.
It wasn't even finished. But they then went, okay, let's go and find out who this geezer is. They just went on my socials and I'm like, oh yeah, bang, that's what the thing he was talking about. Because they can see the evolutionary journey of it, and they could go, okay, yeah, this geezer's like, he's doing what he's talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, and it's also, it's not a crowded market as people think it is. I was listening to something the other day about, it's something stupid like there's like 5 million YouTube channels or something stupid like that. There's millions of YouTube channels.
Yeah, there's crazy amounts.
But there's only 800,000 podcasts. And of those podcasts, only to get to 1% of podcasts in the market, you need to do 20 episodes. If you've done
so I'm in the top 1%.
You're in the top 1%.
Wow.
Because most people quit. Like most people quit before they even get to 10 episodes. Because they start it and then they realise there's all the work, and especially if you're not in a position where you've got a team of people that are doing all the editing, putting the videos together for you, and doing all the posting and hosting. Like it does take time. Like I said to you before, I can probably edit a podcast in an hour or so, but then I've got to post it. I've got to write the copy. I've got to get all the links ready. I've got to write the title, all that kind of stuff. That
all the thumbnails, the artwork, all the other shit that goes around.
And then like this episode's going to have a video to go with it, so I'm going to want to edit the video together and put that out there as well. So yeah, there's a lot to it that people don't realize when they start. And I think I was aware that, again, like we said before, is building a training business and the PrimeKnowledge brand from kind of nothing without any capital. We were going to have to put work in ourselves and figure out. Like for me, I had to learn how to make a podcast and learn how to do all that stuff. So that's taken time as well. So, but it's going to be totally worth it in the end. So it's going to be it's good. I'm looking forward to kind of where it goes. So,
but the other thing is, you can look back over the evolution of it as well, and I think that's really important, because too many people in the entrepreneurial space are focusing on looking forward, which is great. But it's also really important to look backwards and go, do you know what? I'm here today in the present moment. Yes, I'm looking forwards, but actually, look what I've achieved.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the reasons for having that type of content out there, is because it enables you to do that, occasionally, and just have a little bit of a check-in with yourself about actually, I'm doing all right. I have actually achieved a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So it wouldn't be a podcast without asking for book recommendations. Big fan of books myself. It's been really pivotal to kind of developing my business knowledge, from self-confessed the kid at school that fell out of school with just a couple of C's and would be considered by people that I went to school with as a kid that would never have achieved anything within business and stuff. So, what book recommendations do you have? Either ones that you've read and recommended a lot, or books that you've read recently that have been...
Okay. It's like a whole nother podcast. Right, here goes. You ready? So the 12-week year, absolute game-changing book.
Yeah, read that one.
So that's by Brian Moran. So Life Leverage, absolutely powerful book. Who Not How is probably in my top 5. Happy Sexy Millionaire is undoubtedly one of the best books I've ever read. The lessons you can pick up from that in mindset and overcoming challenges with that in that book are phenomenal. Another one that's in my top 5 is undoubtedly Opportunity by Rob Moore.
I haven't read that.
That is a phenomenal book. How to Own the Room. Now, this is a book that I actually bought originally in a shop my daughter likes going to called Oliver Bonus, that does like clothes and like bits of makeup and stuff. It's about public speaking. It's allegedly written for women, but there's loads of valuable stuff in there for men as well. Viv Groskop. Show Me the Bodies, which is a book about Grenfell, which I would implore that anybody who's in property read, because there's some really powerful stuff in that. So, Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, that's a really powerful book. Start with No by Jim Camp, that's another really good book. Branding That Means Business by Matt Johnson, phenomenal book, and branding is like relevant in absolutely everything. The Gap and the Gain, The High Achiever's Guide to Happiness. I've just gone cold actually thinking about that. The Go Giver books, so The Go Giver, Sell More. They're a phenomenal series of like books. Indistractable, How to Control What Our Attention Is and Control Your Life. And this one I'm going to say next. I was actually talking about it yesterday on stage at an event it's a book called by a guy called Donald Miller, and it's called Building a Story Brand.
It's a great book, that one.
Yeah, wouldn't be a book list without Atomic Habits by James Clear. One that's not so, or two books that are not so widely recognised, but this guy is not only an amazing author, he's also an absolutely amazing public speaker. A guy called Matthew Syed, and his two books are called Rebel Ideas and Black Box Thinking. So, and I've got a few others that I'm going to end with, which are Hook Point, How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World. Phenomenal book. Anybody that's got something to say or sell needs to understand that. A Reverently Approach to Inbound Marketing is a book called They Ask You Answer, which is about understanding what questions your target audience will have. Man Up, Man Down is a book about suicide by Paul McGregor. Absolute phenomenal read. Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Absolute fucking game-changing book. Because if it ain't making the boat go faster, we ain't doing it. One that I could probably learn some lessons from, The Body Keeps the Score, which says quite a lot about where I'm at right now, probably. And the two that I will end with are The One Thing, The Surprisingly Simple Truth Behind Extraordinary Results, and The 80-20 Principle by Richard Koch.
That is the most robust list I think I've ever. I usually get a couple of books, couple of recommendations. I don't know if I said to you beforehand to that I would ask that question, and if you had a
No, you didn't. So,
list, or you just got a list ready to go at all times.
yeah, I've got. So I actually share it on my socials because I get asked at every event, like, what are your top 10 books? Or
Yeah.
And I'm an avid reader. I read 100 books last year, so. And I do.
I go through stages. Do
Listen
you?
to a bit.
Yeah. Do you read, or do you Audible?
Both. And some books I'll listen to on Audible. There's probably about 50 that I've listened to first and then gone and bought. I was always taught. I mean, I used to get smacked across the back of the hands at school when I was there, like for not respecting books. And so books were the holy grail because they were expensive. So for me to write in a book was like a big thing. And it's now something I do with joyful abandonment. I love writing notes in books, and like I've got. We used to use them for like proofreading contracts, like little tiny like tab stickers. So if I'm reading, I'll always have some of them around. And I like so some books I like to kind of I like to actually read, and some books have got like visual things, like infographics and stuff to articulate points. So that sometimes you can download, but it's not the same downloading the PDF and looking at it later. You need to kind of have that when you're actually listening or reading the content. So
yeah, I think it's. I like to, if I'm reading, is to make notes, and then even just I sometimes just use on my phone. If I'm listening to something, I just stop it, just write down things that are really kind of interesting.
Yeah, like key takeaways or key actions and stuff.
Yeah, just things that, and quite often books will. Different things in a book will resonate at different times. Like I've read a few books a few times over. And the first time round, it was really key to this one thing I was working on. And then when I read it a year or two later, there were some other points that, because we're at a different stage of our business, that they were useful in different ways.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, what have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's like, there are 15 in there. People have got some reading to do after this, and me, because most of those that I haven't read as well. So
cool.
Yeah. Yes, that's cool. So thanks
So
for that.
I've
That's
got
really
a question for you. When
yes.
you're recording in the room, what is
Mhm.
your tech setup?
So I use a microphones. I use just Samsung microphones. I use a Zoom. What is it? Recorder. I can't remember the exact one it is now. It's only their kind of cheap 4-point recorder and memory cards. Then I just like padding. So I've got my questions written.
Mhm.
Um, I've probably only asked half of them today, so it's more I tend to maybe ask one question and then some
Yeah.
of what the guest or you might pick up and you'll answer kind of next
Mm.
part of the questions anyway, or I'll ask follow-up questions. And then just a notepad. I'm a bit old school in using a notepad.
Yeah. Write stuff down.
Yeah, I think maybe at some point I might have to try and get to some way of keeping some order to this stuff because obviously the most difficult thing about a notepad is trying to then. I had a conversation with Rach about something the other night, and I was like, I've definitely got that wrote in a pad. I know I have. I couldn't tell you which pad and where it is without manually going back through. So I
Do
might
you
need
want
to
me to
find
give
a
you
way
a really good tip for
of
that?
go
Right,
on.
so a really good tip for notes is I've switched. So loads of people said to me to go and buy one of those remarkable things. I was like, I ain't paying 500 quid for a fucking notepad. So
Yeah,
I went through, I did loads of research on YouTube, and I downloaded the Notability app on my iPad. Honestly, it's like a fucking game changer. And now all my notes are in that because they're all indexed, they're all separated. So I can show you actually on the screen. I've literally got it in front of me. So I've got like different sections. So I've got progressive mentoring, the blueprint mentoring, our projects, personal life, family stuff, client work, non-exec stuff. Each one's got its own section, and then all my notes are in there. And then literally, if I wanted to get a new note, I'd just go in there and go like that. Yeah, done. So
yeah,
easy, but I never because I used to have a new notepad for everything. Every different like project, every non-exec role had its own notepad, and it meant that wherever I was in the country, I'd only have the stuff I needed. So if I had a call with someone as an emergency, I wouldn't have my notes with me. Whereas now they're all on my iPad.
on the iPad. Yeah, I think that was potentially like the next option for me was to um, do it that way. I've got, like you say, loads of different stuff going on. So
Mm.
as well as the training business and the podcast is kind of one thing, and then I've got the SA service accommodation Airbnb business. I've also got other property stuff and potentially a maintenance company to start and that kind of stuff. So yeah, trying to keep on top of it. Plus, I've started to do like business coaching for business
Okay.
owners to kind of help them navigate the journey that I've just been on in the last sort of 15 years. So, yeah, again, you've got different clients there that are going through different things. So having
It's
a way,
so much easier because you can, and the other thing is you can search it as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, I
you
think
haven't
that's
got to keep trying to find stuff. And if you've already got an iPad, then it's not loads of money to get to that next step.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely something I need to look at next. But for now, we're old school pen and paper and a setup. So yeah,
Good
just
man.
and then just plug in headphones. It's not. I keep it as simple as possible. It's like
Mm,
this. This system does the video, does the recording,
mm.
and then it will put it straight into my hosting platform, and then I can just edit it. We've had a little bit of an issue with some poor internet, which has made it a little bit more difficult today. But it's been good to have you on. I think it's really
Yeah, it's been really
interesting,
good.
fascinating to see kind of your journey from somebody that's been in the building trade for as long as you have and how you've developed into senior management and then into running your own kind of training business. And you're probably a couple of years ahead of where we are, and it's kind of fascinating to see how you've done it. And so I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners? Anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about?
Not really, I don't think. I mean, we're launching, so we've obviously got our project management blueprint course, which teaches people how to set up and run a construction company and a project. We're actually creating an online version of that at the moment, so it's accessible for people all over the country. It's got over 70 lessons in it, and it's literally every single thing you would need to set up and run a construction company. It's a whole business in a box. I'm really excited about putting that online because it's going to make it more accessible. It's easier. People haven't got to travel. They haven't got to pay for hotels. They can download it. They've got it for life. I'm really excited about that because it's going to be able to help more people. So, Yeah, no, I think we've covered most stuff. I would say if you want any help with setting up your maintenance stuff and your construction stuff, give us a shout.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
not a template that we haven't got.
No, I'm sure there isn't. I'm
Whether
sure
it's
you are the man.
operations, HR, commercial, contracts, whatever it is, it's all there. So
I will share at the end of the episode in the show notes the Richard's details and website and that kind of stuff. So any of the viewers, if you want to find out more about Rich and what you're doing, then you can do that, and that'll be us for today.
brilliant. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please follow on Apple and Spotify. All details of today's episode can be found in the show notes below. For more info and content, check out our Facebook page. Thank you and goodbye.